And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Violence breeds violence. Repression breeds retaliation. And only a cleansing of our wholesome society can remove this sickness from our souls.
Those folks who were responsible have been held accountable.
Develops weapons of mass destruction. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society.
And we're back with another episode of the WRK podcast where we ask the questions, but at the end of the day, who really knows? As always, I'm your host, AJ, here with my good friends Dylan and Michael.
Hey, howdy.
Joined in the studio by the sad little robot.
Hey, what's up? Boys are back in town.
Yeah, we're here, freak bitches. We're back for another Spooktober, favorite month of the year. Let's get into it. Nothing but death, homicide, murders, spooky shit, haunted houses. That's all we're talking about for the month of October, baby.
Moms?
Moms? Maybe. Might be a few moms in here.
There's probably going to be a couple moms up in the cut. But before we jump into this episode about the Prom Night Massacre, make sure you follow us on Twitter at WRKPod, on Instagram at WRKPodcast. Hit up our Patreon page, patreon.com/WRKPod, where you can find a cute picture of us hanging out on the rock.
Right, yes.
Not Dwayne the Rock, but the Rock.
And if Dwayne ever wants us to take a picture on top of him, that would be cool too.
I've played that game before.
We would do that.
Yeah, there's just a game where you climb on bodybuilders, and it's fun.
Is this what your uncle was telling you to do?
No, it was a Xbox 360 game, but
Uncles hate bodybuilders because kids always, want to climb over them, and it's like, God, why couldn't I have been stronger?
But yeah, make
Not
sure
just
you
a weird creepy uncle.
Make sure you follow us on everything. Yeah, we'll be putting some content out on the Patreon page as soon as people start showing interest in it. So there we are. If you need links to anything, WRKpodcast.com. There's also a cute picture of us with The Rock there. Not the same one that you'll see on the Patreon page. We're wearing less clothing than the one on the Patreon page, so...
I feel like we need to maybe just Photoshop The Rock on The Rock. I don't know.
Just his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Very faint, though. Like a crater in the moon. You really
like
have
low,
to,
low
you really have to
opacity.
stare at it.
That'd be great.
It would be. Whoever says it's not, fuck you. Don't listen. Get out of here.
Your mom said you adopted. Anyway, so...
That was it.
He was telling on you.
I was telling on
you're
AJ because
Yep.
he makes the total throat sounds, and every time he does, I get fucking looked at weird, and I'm like, that is not me.
I'm taking my sippy lid off then. Whatever.
It's the throat sound. I heard the whole thing. I heard it go down the throat.
Gulp.
Yep, the gulp.
Yep, I can hear it every
That
time.
All right. So anyway, the story of the Prom Night Massacre. Yeah, so this story takes place in Lakeville, Indiana. And hold on, computer, why are you being like that? Don't do me like that.
Don't do me
Doing
like
him-
that.
doing him
Oh
dirty.
man,
What year was it?
The year is 1989.
Ooh, what was the vehicle I was driving at the time?
20 years
The
later,
one that you were
it'd be
driving at the time,
69.
like before you were born.
I don't know. What was my mom driving at the
You're
time?
driving your mom's Pinto,
I think she did have a Pinto, though. So you might be right.
probably. So the bodies were discovered the day after the local high school's prom. giving it the nickname the Prom Night Massacre, Prom Night Murder. Same difference.
Massacre sounds cooler.
Yeah, massacre sounds way cooler.
Sounds
But
like
if
there's
you
a
look
ghost
that up on the
involved.
internet, it brings you to like insane clown posse shit.
Yeah. And like, do we want you to go watch their shit? Sure, but different subject today.
Only if you're drinking Faygo.
Yeah, if you're
They go
drinking
in
Moon Mist,
and painting your face like a clown. That's it.
if you're drinking Moon Mist, check it out.
Yep.
So like if you made it this far into the show when we talk about stuff like this, obviously we're going to be talking about, like the court findings and all that kind of stuff. But we're also going to look at like local hearsay, town gossip.
Of course.
What we'll probably make some shit up. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who really knows?
Don't believe everything we say.
Don't believe everything unless I say it. So the story starts out with Robert Pelly and his wife Jackie and their 2 children. Unfortunately, Jackie was sick for 2 years leading up to 1985. Ending in her untimely demise. Robert married less than a year after, so he was like, probably getting around on a sick wife.
He was over it.
Well, I mean, she can't put out. Somebody else got to, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Probably.
I was about to
views-
make a really fucked up joke, and I caught
I
myself.
feel like
and
views
I'm
back
glad.
in the day was like, though, like, yo, if you don't have a family, what are you? So I feel like it's like as soon as your wife dies, like it's not even cool to say that you're not getting another family. Like you have to.
I mean,
You gotta have a family.
Dude, I've got so many families.
yeah.
the hardest
like
part
5
is,
families.
is like keeping them so they don't know about each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, hoes in different area codes. That's what Ludacris taught me at a very young age.
Okay. See, I just follow the Mormon ways and just
Yeah, what's
Keep
the
Hoes in the
saying?
same area
yeah,
code.
this-
no,
it's
just
like-
keep them all in one
Hoes,
house.
hoes in the same address.
Yes.
Okay, that's
The-
doable.
The cheers, to our wives, families, and girlfriends. May they never meet.
Yes.
That's probably my favorite one.
So yeah, Jackie dies of cancer.
Loser.
Jesus.
Hey, we were all thinking it. Someone had to say it. So yeah, like I mean, he's not grieving for his high school sweetheart dying on him.
Right. So if he married this girl, I wonder how long he knew her. Like, was she just another girl from like high school?
So this other girl, Dawn. Dawn's husband also passed away that same year that they remarried.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So I mean
Yeah.
that makes more sense. Like, yo, like let's just chill out. We're not.
They
let's mourn
they
together.
met at the my spouse died of cancer
No.
Yeah.
club.
Well, yeah, they had cancer. 2 gunshots to the back of the head.
Dude, yeah, they probably.
No, that's the Gemini.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that.
They probably went there. Dawn probably didn't even have her spouse die, like what shows on Netflix, but she's just lying about it to go meet people. Smart move. It's like Wedding Crashers, you know?
Yep.
Kind of,
Yeah.
I guess, in a way.
Like Will Ferrell says, one of the best ways to pick up a chick is at a funeral. They need to make the sequel. I don't know why they haven't made Funeral Crashers yet. Like, that just blows my mind, but whatever.
I don't think anyone wants to touch
I guess I don't know good TV.
Yeah.
So Dawn had 3 of her own children, Jolene, Janelle, and Jessica. A lot of J's in this family.
A lot of
It
J's.
gets really fucking confusing when they start throwing names around real quick.
It doesn't matter. They're dead. Who cares about
It's
them?
it's like when your mom tries to yell at you and she goes through everybody else's name, even the dogs before yours. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, fuck.
I'm that low on the totem pole.
It's best though, that you yell out the name that you're more pissed off at. But you have to yell at the other kids to make them feel included,
Even the dogs.
Exactly.
So Jackie Jr. and Jeff, I have it in my notes, so I'm not going to question at this point. Robert and Jackie Sr.'s kids. were not happy about the marriage so close after their mother's death. Jackie Sr., her death. Jeff was 14. Jackie was 10 at the time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy about that either.
Well, actually, talking about not being happy, and this might go a little further in your notes, but, we're going to talk about Jeff.
It really starts lashing out.
Right, is lashing out. And, I didn't really put this together, but Jeff actually tried to kill himself. A little 14-year-old Jeff, right? 14? Is that right? Tries to kill himself a year earlier to all this. So, I mean, that would make sense that... When his mom died. Yeah.
Well, his mom dying was all his fault, so...
It was.
Turns out Jeff was the cancer in the family.
Yeah, that's what his dad says. She died of cancer, and he calls Jeff cancer every time he walks in the room.
But Dad, I'm an Aries. It's not about when you were born.
Yeah, parents were hard back in the day.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Just kidding.
So before Robert was a small town priest, he worked as a computer technician and then quickly became higher up at a bank in what fucking town was it in Florida? Why do I not have it in my notes? I want to say Key West, but I know it's not Key West. It's Fort Myers.
Fort Myers,
Florida. God, dude, I have such a good memory. But so the bank would later be tied to a drug cartel. And, it's a big time thing when the drug dealers are actually using the bank for their own financial success. So that's kind of a big time connection there.
It's easier to clean money that way.
It is.
You're just like taking out one step, taking out a...
they always talk about like American criminals using like banks off the coast of Florida for cleaning their money and, just to have a bank account in the Cayman Islands, all that shit. And then you're like, oh yeah, but the dudes in Colombia just have like a bank in Key West, Florida. America's a U.S. bank account.
Why come on her when you can Cayman her?
Didn't they? I mean, did you see anything about those the Pandora Papers or whatever that Keegs was talking about?
Didn't even look
about
into
the
it.
People hiding their money. Is it them hiding their money offshore, like U.S. trillionaires, or people hiding their money in the U.S.?
It's how United States has became a tax haven for the millionaires and shit like that because of all the tax loopholes we have.
Yeah,
he told me to look that.
Definitely
and I was like,
believe
we could definitely do something like that.
Definitely after Spooktober.
Yeah, but we're not
doing it this month
during Spooktober, okay?
We've got like 5 episodes that we are able to do this month, and it's all going to be spooky.
Yeah. Maybe you're dressed like a hot dog.
So I want to get through everything in this episode because I'm like, I don't want to redo a second part when we could do something totally awesome,
Yeah. Well, yeah, our next show is next Monday, and we need to find something. I want to do something like haunted house. I want to make you believe in ghosts. You believe in ghosts.
I believe in goats.
Okay, I want to make you believe in goats. Or Luciferian. Do you remember when we talked about Cropsy, that fucking serial killer that was from the insane asylum that shut down in Long Island?
I like that one.
I want stuff like that all month, baby, but there's not...
Hidden lore legends.
Yeah.
Let me just live underneath the tunnels in the abandoned asylum.
Yeah, dude, that's so crazy that it happened in Long Island, New York. But anyway, back to Fort Myers, Florida at this point in time. Let's see here.
And by the way, this murder massacre is in the low 1% of the craziest shit that's ever happened in Florida. Like this doesn't even get on the radar.
Well, yeah, I mean this happens this happens in Indiana, which bumps it up to like a 10.
Yeah.
But if it happened in Florida,
I forgot they were in Florida before. Yeah.
Yeah, if this happened in Florida, it'd be
You
like a
don't-
4.
You don't leave Florida though and have it just go away. It goes
yeah,
with
no,
you.
Florida follows
Florida
you.
stays.
Florida follows.
It's like an infection. All right.
Like if you visited Florida, like there's gonna be some shit coming up in your life at some point.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, sad little robot.
Yep.
Damn.
So the bank that he was working at was getting audited by the IRS.
Yes.
There's some back in those days, some questionable bank accounts that the IRS wanted to look into. Also, the bank was missing over $1 million.
Yeah, I think
Fucking money, shithead!
Exactly.
Yeah. I think they were going. The bank was getting into a downward spiral.
Yeah, they were being
Well-
heavily investigated.
They should have just had a fucking plane crash into him.
Exactly.
Yeah, they hadn't like Bush. I mean, Bush was around, but you know he didn't have that idea yet.
They should have had all the security cameras go down for maintenance, and all the computers would hang themselves.
Exactly.
Y2K, dude. Y2K.
So Jackie, Robert's oldest daughter, mentioned later in her life to the police that that the night before the family left Florida, Robert got called into the bank to do maintenance, and then that night they packed up what they could and moved to Indiana.
Yeah, because he was about to go to jail or prison for fucking embezzling.
Or get shot by a fucking Cuban.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably one more than the other.
Yeah.
But he was brought in to help investigate into the bank's fraud, and then they up and skip town.
Oh yeah.
Huh. How the turntables.
Yeah, he definitely had activity, you know, and people have talked about, you know, what activity did he knew that he was going in front of his eyes, that he was just, you know, seeing what was going on with the company, and he was just scared. You know, people talk about, well, he was obviously, you know, frightened by what was going on. You know, he was seeing what was happening. He was in charge of financial shit, and, you know, he saw what was going on, and he's like, you know, this is trouble. Like, I need to get out of here. Like, this just seems like shit's about to go down. You know? And he's like, I don't want to be involved in this, is what he tries to tell people. So we'll just leave that there.
Yeah, so he takes an over $200,000 a year, I think, pay cut to seek out a reverendship at a church called the Olive Branch Church in Lakeville, Indiana.
And he wasn't even he wasn't a pastor, a minister, nothing.
He was
not
a church goer to a church in the Nazarene Lutheran Church in Key West, Florida, or not Key West, Fort Myers, Florida, and took up the reverendship of the Olive Branch Church.
Woo! We love hitting that word of the day. That's what we do.
Sad little robot will tell us.
Did you? Wasn't it the word you picked, AJ?
I forgot about it already.
And the word was reverend.
Reverend. Okay, we were gonna hit that anyway.
I think Dylan hit it because he said he wasn't even a pastor or a reverend or something.
Yeah, baby.
I know, and then I skipped because like you had said half the word, and then I was like, and then yeah, so I had to,
Rev pastor. It's crazy.
I had to wait for it to be fully said in a setting where I wasn't gonna fucking like say it after you said tits or something like that.
Anyway, let's get this cinnamon whiskey death ball out of
Sad
the way.
little robot. I gave you kind of a weaker shot. You good with that?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to fill her up?
No, I'll just fill the rest up with Miller Lite.
Okay, AJ, you want me to fill her up or how much?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I'm ready to drink, dude. I was so excited to get this. I was like, man, I'm so happy.
Are you actually mixing it with Miller Lite? That's fucking gross.
Yeah, it makes it taste better.
I think I've done the same shit. You know, like when you got to take something real nasty, like why drink straight vodka when you could put a little beer in it, you know?
God, that sounds like a nightmare.
Drinking straight vodka sounds like a nightmare.
I don't think I'll do any of that.
All right, hey, remember, we're the Day Shot. Whether you're at home, whether you're at work, whether you're driving on the road and you got a long trip ahead of you, go ahead and grab a shot and take it with us. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
This is how you put hair on your armpits.
Ziggy zaggy, ziggy
Honestly, if you
zaggy,
listen to
yo,
this
yo,
show
yo.
on the road and you're not prepared for the word of the day shot, like, you're not really listening to the show.
You better put it on pause. Drive to the nearest gas station, get a shooter.
That beer thing worked.
Robert and his family were originally members of the Nazarethian Lutheran Church of Fort Myers, Florida. And the Olive Branch Church was not a Lutheran church. It was not anything close to what they've been practicing for, 14 years.
You love God, you love God.
Right.
Who's gonna arrest the pastor?
Nobody.
He'll just get relocated.
And then, the pastor just moves. We've talked about this before. But no, he literally gets a free house at this church. It's called a parsonage. His family moves into the parsonage. I never saw anything about like the transition of him moving from the bank in Florida to being the pastor of this church. Like I never saw, like it was just like this happened and then he's here.
It really, I didn't really see anything there, but I mean, it definitely talks about
that it was ill fate or not his faith.
Yeah, he was just really, really God faithful guy, is what they talked about. So I mean, I think it was, I can't remember if it was him or the other guy, but I think it was him. Maybe that he was really outspoken about his faith. I think he was very, everything he did, anything he did in work, he liked to add God to it and do prayers and shit. So.
Right, and you can't fake that charisma to where he led that church for 4 years without anyone questioning what was going on.
Right.
So I guess I don't know. And the family was well respected in the community. They would let people from the church, if they showed up to church early, come join them for breakfast. Kind of like what Catholics have been doing since the 1500s, but same diff.
Right, of course.
Yeah, so the community started depending on Robert as a moral leader, which I think is really weird when he is coming from the outside from Florida and now he's morally leading the entire community just because he's the new preacher at the church, even though they've only known him for a year at that point.
Mm-hmm.
He's a messenger.
And so at the point of leaving Florida to Indiana, Jeff goes from 14 to 16. That's the time skip where Jeff really starts getting into some bullshit.
Uh-oh.
With some of the local boys breaking into cars, stealing shit from the grocery store.
Bags of Cheetos.
And then it later turns
Cheetos
into
and Code Red.
later turns into like actual burglary, breaking into houses before 18.
Oh, jeez. Just get a slap on the
Well,
wrist.
that's when you do it, so you don't get in trouble. It
Yeah.
doesn't stay on your record,
As long, I mean,
You're
not doing any
podcast does
time.
not condone burgling.
But no, and every time he got in trouble, they wouldn't take him to the jail. They wouldn't charge him. They would bring him back to the
parish.
Yeah, and let his dad deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what you do. It just says Ryan Reynolds. He handed me a sheet of paper that says Ryan Reynolds, and I was trying to act sneaky and hand him something, and he knew.
I thought I was going to say something naughty.
Yeah.
It does.
Ryan Reynolds is naughty.
He kind of is.
If you like Ryan Reynolds and you think he's naughty, subscribe to our podcast. Like the episode. Subscribe.
Yeah, make sure you follow us on YouTube.
Let's
Do we
change
get a custom URL?
Let's change the title of the episode to Ryan Reynolds and just leave it at that.
If you
we should just
are
leave it at
Ryan
that
Reynolds.
like the entire month of October.
Yep. Our viewers already know what we're doing. Like, let's bring it in. Come on, let's clickbait.
Ryan Reynolds.
I'm not ashamed to
please just
clickbait.
join our podcast.
Maybe he'll find our podcast and be like, wow, those guys are really smart, huh?
We just got to start the hashtag Ryan Reynolds is naughty and just have it go viral.
Yes. Oh
So,
my gosh.
Dylan,
We're just going to be like, what the fuck does this even mean?
Before we start jumping into prom night, do you have anything to add before we jump into prom night? Because I know you've also done your due diligence.
Yeah, I've done way too much due diligence or research this week. I got way too much
Yeah, you
shit.
did more than I did, and so I'm like,
I
over
have
here
like
like,
60,
holy shit,
I have 18,
this is your show.
18 pages of notes.
Oh,
It's fucked up.
fuck, dude. I thought I had...
18 pages of copy and pasting, probably.
Oh, very much copy and pasting. That's why I think I can really go through it fast, but I just kept it as like, I just, in case I need it, it's there, but very much so. Yeah, I don't know, before we go into prom night, it seems like a normal story, like a kid who gets in trouble and, if the start of the story, we don't find some of this stuff out later, but, right now it's talking about how his dad won't let him go and all, and, of course a kid's going to be mad about that, and that's kind of what the narrative was, is that, why this kid did what he did because, his dad wasn't going to let him go to prom, apparently, and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's kind of where I think we covered most of the beginning information.
Yeah. One thing I want to throw out before we start getting into like the prom night area of the story is a week for the entire week before prom. Neighbors noticed, wow, there's an awful lot of Florida license plates outside of the parish. Mm-hmm. Outside of churching hours. Like, they're getting visited from people from Florida.
And they did have friends from Florida. They had really good family friends. The Hollies. They were really close friends of theirs. So that is something that does, kind of come into the story later. But they did have really close relationships with a family. The kids were all friends and stuff like that. But
yeah.
it gets way fucking deep. It gets
I'm only bringing
deep.
it up because none of this information was ever brought up in the trial, investigation, or anything.
Yeah, it is
literally
fucking,
the trial.
Oh my god,
the trial turned into this kid was trouble and he did it.
It was one of the investigators, and even coming back later with more evidence and talking about it when talking. With one of the people re-bringing up the case, one of the investigators during that investigation said that Jeff, the kid, had eyes that were dark, like, I don't remember how exactly he said it, dark like a demon or something.
Dark like a demon.
Dark like a demon. That kid was ready to bark at you, he was like a pit bull from hell,
Yeah, dark like a
and
demon.
even
That guy could probably write some pretty good screamo lyrics.
These investigators too. What's crazy about it is like later on with more stuff that we could talk about. I want to try and get to. They still stand by everything they said and refuse to change what what their side
they're
was.
retired now. They don't want to admit that they were wrong and
Right.
like the case that they're famous for.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah.
And you see it time and time again with people that there was debates of whether or not the Golden State Killer killed someone or the Night Stalker killed someone, and investigators I'm not willing to say that I was wrong in my investigation.
Right. Oh yeah. We've seen that. Oh my god, how many times? And it's just like, you look a lot better if you say, I'm not saying I was right. I'm just saying it's what I noticed. I noticed something God, I didn't.
Especially if there's more
it's my
information
job to
that
try and
comes
know
out.
this stuff. Yeah, you might be right. I might be right, but instead they just don't want to be wrong.
Yeah, it's like me being like, yeah, no, I didn't forget to season those chickpeas, and then I turn around and be like, I've totally forgot to season those chickpeas, dude. It's the exact same thing.
God damn it! My fucking chickpeas taste like fucking water.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. Like my chickpeas could go out tasting bland. Someone could end up in jail for the rest of their life. Same fucking thing.
Of course.
Same universe too.
Yeah.
Bam. Whatever that
It's
means.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know. I don't know.
I think that's what I was getting at. That's what I was getting at.
Guy at restaurant gets unseasoned chickpeas and goes home and murders his wife over it.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Now I feel guilty. Honestly, he should be eating the birria taco anyway. And that's my TED talk. Anyway,
let's make our own. Let's make our own. Let's call it Red Talk. Think we'd get sued?
Maybe.
Make a cereal called TED Talk? Is that what you said?
No, he's saying
just
make
like
a
our own
make a
show, our
called
own
Red
platform
Talk.
of people coming on and talking about something. It'll be called
why,
Red Talk.
Why the fuck did I think you said make a cereal and call it TED Talk? What the fuck? What the fuck did I hear? What the fuck is going on in my head right now?
That idea is honestly way better than mine. I don't know why.
What the fuck is happening? Dude, I literally thought you said we should make a cereal and call it TED Talk. Is what I heard.
Yes, but who's gonna be our model for Ted?
Ted
The
Bundy.
bear from the fucking movie. I don't know.
We get
Seth MacFarlane.
Then we can get sued twice. Something about getting sued just makes you feel so good.
makes you feel like you're doing
Hey, I
something.
mean, people are thinking about you, though.
It's like, God, the world hates me and I love it.
If you're being
We
sued,
gained 3 subscribers this month and 40 lawsuits.
Yeah. Hey, the money we make off those 3 subscribers is definitely going to cover the 40 lawsuits.
So Jeff was arrested early April for burglary. Jeff was grounded from going to prom, which really pissed off his prom date. His
Totally
girlfriend,
a good reason to kill people, too.
Yeah.
If you get grounded, dude, just go for it.
Michael Myers style.
it depends who you kill.
Everyone.
Yeah, it's literally like Michael Myers. Just fucking go ham. So his prom date, Darlene, we'll get into that bitch. But Jeff later, and we'll probably get into this too in more detail, called his girlfriend and said, "Hey, we're going to prom. What's good? Bring condoms."
Damn.
Those words, exactly.
So what came out from my lips to God's ears? That's what I said.
That's why I didn't go to prom, because I knew there was a bunch of godless heathens, and I needed to refrain my abstinence.
I went to one prom
You're a
and
stand-up
I wanted to
Christian, Mike?
fucking
Yeah.
kill myself the
Thanks.
entire time I was at
if you
prom. I
ain't-
would have rather have been dead.
If you ain't praying, you ain't staying. Get the fuck away from me.
Exactly.
Gotta say grace before I eat this pussy.
So the entire weekend of the murders, Jeff, Jessica, and Jackie were all air quotes away that weekend, be it slumber party, prom bash, or church retreat. 3 of the J's were gone from the 7J household.
All of those events that they were
like that.
partaking in sound like orgies. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, it's not Jeff's fault that he was out there trying to fucking finger blast Darlene at
Oh, yeah.
Sodom and Joe's.
But Darlene, my dad
Cabin.
won't let me go to prom. Let me finger blast you in the cabin.
Exactly.
So this is where like the story picks up steam, I guess. Hopefully we didn't lose too many people at this point. But
No, we still have -4 watchers. We're good.
lit. So Saturday, in April of 1989, Jeff, the oldest son, went to work at his job at McDonald's at 4:15 in the morning. His coworker picked him up. Must have been before child labor laws. And then he would later be picked up by his father, Reverend Pelly. And Jeff's coworker picked him up, takes him to work. Everything goes fine. He's telling everyone, like, yeah, my dad changed his mind. Like, I'm going to prom tonight, blah, blah. And on their way home, Jeff starts hammering his dad, according to Jeff, that, okay, you've said that I could go to prom. You said you wanted to drive me and Darla there and back, but I want to take my Mustang. He had a really nice silver Mustang. And Robert was like, no, I don't know. I don't know if I approve of you dating this Darlene. You got bad grades. You're doing crime, blah, blah, blah. Her name doesn't start with a J. Doesn't work out with our family.
Jarlene.
Yeah, well,
That's what he calls her every time she comes over. Hey, Jarlene.
So what, his dad started calling her after he shot him in the head, and then he was like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But Jeff said at this point his father agreed to letting him take his Mustang to prom and helped him replace the spark plugs that his dad had originally taken out of his Mustang.
There's a lot of people, too, that did say, like, a lot of the people that try and argue about this that say his dad didn't let him go to prom, and that they, even with this knowledge, and there's more facts, too, to back it up, that he was okay with him going to prom, like checks, having his name, or, like, his mom, Jeff's mom's name or something, like, with the money and the signature saying, for prom. Like, there was a lot of evidence saying that he was definitely allowed to go to prom. And people still try and say that he was, like, for the case, was like, no, this isn't even a thing. He was not allowed. He killed them. He was not allowed.
Don wrote the check for his fucking
Forgery.
tuxedo.
Right, yes.
Forged it.
I mean, there was more. There's a
huge difference between an
between
18-year-old forging a signature of, like, a 50-year-old woman in a 50-year-old woman's signature. And back then they would actually look at handwriting outside of putting it in a computer and lining it up.
Later in this, they actually, I mean, way further in the story, they even bring in expert, forgery people. Like handwriting experts, yes. And it gets crazy at that point.
Dude, it's even like in the 1989, it's a fucking nightmare of a story to wrap your head around. So this car drive from him coming home from McDonald's is where the story splits into two different realities. One of them's real, and it's really hard to fucking figure out which one is the real one. So either Robert gives Jeff the spark plugs back to his Mustang,
His name's
and
Jeff.
lets him go. Yeah, his name is Jeff. Lets him take his car to prom, go to Chicago after the slumber party where he finger bangs Darlene. Or Jeff commits this crime, then does all of those things that his dad supposedly allowed him to do. Those are the two realities that this car ride separates into. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy to me.
Yes.
I don't know.
Also, right before picking up Jeff from McDonald's, his dad stopped at the local gun store, where the gun store told detectives he was an avid gun collector. Which, why would you not be an avid gun collector when you had previously worked as a personal banker for the Colombian cocaine cartel?
So let me go pick up another one.
Yeah.
Because they're in town.
Yes.
Oh, some people visiting me from Florida.
I would very much be, finger quotes, collecting guns if I was in that particular situation.
Yarp.
Yarp indeed.
Yeah. And then eyewitnesses also said after coming home from work, they saw Jeff, his dad, and two of his youngest sisters, the two that would later be executed, washing his Mustang, getting ready for prom. Which, why the fuck would the dad be like, no, you can't take your car to prom, but also get your sisters to wash your car with you?
On top of all this, too.
And I'm going to help polish the wheels.
Before he heads to prom, on top of this, the Bob, the pastor, he's taking pictures for many families and many prom goers. Like they are going to their house right up until the time that they say like all of this happens. People are coming over to the house nonstop to get pictures taken.
Yeah, and we'll get into that timeline really shortly here because that's where it starts to not make a whole lot of sense. So that afternoon, Saturday, all of Jeff's friends and their dates start showing up to their house, aka the church, because like we were talking about earlier, the Reverend is a staple of the community. And everyone wants to show the Reverend and his wife their prom dresses.
Yeah.
And they say Jeff was literally dressed up like Timmy Turner in a pink and blue polo with blue shorts while they were at the house. At 5:15, the last guest leaves their home. Jeff ended up at his date's house around 5:45. They went to dinner in South Bend, Indiana, and from there they went to prom. After that, the sleepover, where he finger banged her a little bit, and then the next day they went to Great America, the Six Flags store in Chicago. What?
That's what happens, Mike.
Was it the finger banging thing? Did that get you?
Every time.
Yo, finger, yeah.
It's like, yeah,
That's
just
what
like,
happens.
like you had to fucking put it in there every time. It just gets me.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. So Jeff waited to get into his tux at Darlene's house, which to investigators was like a red flag, but at the same time, it's like,
I don't want to be in my tuxedo.
While I'm at dinner, yeah.
well, it's not that.
Well,
It's
no.
like, do you want to get in your tux there and have it be fresh if you're, I don't know. To me, like,
Well,
I'm
okay.
like, oh yeah, get dressed.
Was Darlene in her dress at the fucking...
No, she wasn't even at the farmhouse or the,
okay.
the
'Cause
church.
I thought everybody was showing people, you know, showing what's his name at the church. Everybody was showing their dresses and shit.
Yeah, they were showing the Reverend Robert,
But he and his
but
girlfriend weren't
Darlene
there.
was at her house the whole time.
Okay.
I think it said she was at a country club. And he
I
got
don't
dressed
know.
at the country club, I think is what I remember. But so anyway, he gets dressed there. This is where like investigators really like kind of came in their undies when they wanted Jeff to be the guy, is they found his pink and blue shirt and shorts in the washing machine at the crime scene. So while at the Great American Amusement Park in near Chicago, Jeff said, I feel like something really bad happened at home, which is something his date would later, Darlene would later say in court. I imagine he said that on a Ferris wheel. But yeah, he showed up to Darlene's house wearing something different than what he was wearing when everyone was at the church, and then changed into his tuxedo there.
Okay, that's weird.
A little bit. But think about that timeline, though. So, 5:15, the last people leave the house. He murders his entire family, changes his clothes, cleans himself, and at 5:45, literally 30 minutes later, has repaired his car that his dad supposedly dismantled.
Well, they were already fixing it and washing it earlier.
Right, but he has murdered his family, cleaned himself, driven over 20 miles, and this is or not 20 miles, 20 minutes, and this is the thing, he had a 10-minute pit stop at a gas station where he was recorded being, so that would have given him about 5 minutes to kill his entire family.
Yeah, and then how you gonna clean yourself?
Exactly. The timing doesn't make sense at all.
Just like somebody just wanted to make a name for themselves. Or
And-
just put this
or-
boy in jail.
Yeah, someone didn't like him
Yeah.
in the law enforcement. But Dylan, does that time, does that link up to what you have in your notes?
I have about, I have somewhere, and this is older days, so obviously I think they're going to get times wrong, but they talk about around 5 to around like 5:20 is what I have, but I'm sure that the window is, somewhere in that general area. But also with that,
then they bounced that, so the time frame is bounced off of a woman and the gas station attendant both said that they saw Jeff at the gas station before 9:40 or before 9:30, and he had to work on his car for 10 minutes in the parking lot of the gas station, and then she was able to verify that because she went to the local Walmart and had a receipt in between the time period of 9:30 and 9:45.
also another thing too, like right up to when they say everything happened, he also has another witness, one of his buddies that was a witness that came over before he had to go to pick up his date, who was hanging out with him in his garage after everyone had already, everyone was still coming over, and then when they're all kind of like done coming over, he has a friend as well hanging out with him in the garage, like chilling. So it's not the idea that he was planning something or was even getting ready, the idea of doing something bad. It doesn't add up that he was not, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, either that or he maliciously killed his entire family in 5 minutes and then went to prom.
Exactly. That's the big thing, is that everyone agrees, everyone on his side. Nowadays, you look at any of the things everyone is on his side about, there's no way this motherfucker had the time to do what he did in that time span. There's absolutely no way. He has witnesses up the ass, he has so much reasoning behind it. And honestly, with the information we have today, it's fucking insane. It goes so deep. And the fact that he's still fighting for his freedom is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm on Team Jeff. I don't know.
If you aren't on Team Jeff, you need to get on the internet real quick and do a little bit of reading, because there's a whole story behind this. Hopefully I can get through it. And if I have to, I will go quick as fuck through it, but I will get through it.
So, do you want to go into that before we go into Sunday morning, or do we want to talk about the crime scene that they found?
Let's do everything. Crime scene. Let's do everything, and then
All
I'll
right.
go back into what I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to have to I want to bust through it because I have a lot that I want to talk about, which isn't as related, but you almost need this part of the story that I want to talk about to understand what was going on and who was involved.
Right. Yeah. So Sunday morning, the night after prom, or the morning after prom, rather, Jackie and Jessica have a best friend named Stephanie. And even though both girls were out of town, Stephanie was super excited to go to church. Steffi, along with other members of the congregation, sit around outside the parsonage and murmur rumors about why service is starting late. Everyone who lived at the house had their car there, except for Jeff. But, mind you, he's in Illinois with people. So, it makes sense that Jeff's car is not there.
Right.
The entire congregation is waiting for the church, or waiting outside the church, wondering why the fuck the priest isn't there. So, an hour and a half after church hasn't started, a trustee named David, David is like a sketchy dude, and like the entire investigation into the house. I'm just going to throw that out there. He takes a key from the church to the parsonage and opens the door to the house, and just saw a 1990s horror movie scene. He enters the house and almost immediately goes through the entire first floor, exits the back, and asks the entire congregation, he says, "I found the Reverend. He's dead in the dining room. Go to the altar and say a prayer for him." So the first thing that they do naturally after hearing the Reverend is shot, killed in the dining room, is barge into the house and start stampeding and sleuthing around the house.
All the patrons of the church?
Yeah, just start going in and doing their own look-see of the main floor.
What the fuck?
Until David is able to get them to all leave the house. At one point, one of the churchgoers picks up the phone from the house, dials 911, looking at the dead preacher's body. And when the police answer, he can't speak. So David rips the phone out of his hand and tells the police the address, what's happened, blah, blah, blah.
Jesus.
So you're talking 12 people in this crime scene, touching, grabbing, tripping over shit.
Yep.
Yeah. Playing in the blood.
Probably pooped their pants.
Yeah. And then the police arrive and they investigate the main floor and the second floor. And then one of the paramedics attending to the transportation of Robert's body asks David, who is still there, hanging out, "Is there a basement in the house?" And he says, "Yes, they have a furnished basement." Takes them down into the basement, and as the paramedic one of the first paramedics on the scene says they're walking into the basement with the lights off, and David flicks on the light switch, and the paramedic says, "Holy fucking shit, there's another body down here." And David goes, "No, there's 3 bodies."
Huh. So he already knew. Chills.
Yeah, it's really fucking suspect the way David acts throughout this whole thing.
Also, and I don't know where to put this into the notes, so I'm going to say this before I forget it. There was reports of the basement lights being seen turned on. According to the neighbor, I think it was that the lights were on until around like 2 a.m. is when they don't have any record of the lights being, or around that time. They don't have record of the lights being turned off, that the lights were on in the basement.
For the entire
And
night.
When the investigators came, the lights were turned off. So by the time they had shown up, the lights were not on anymore.
Right.
And this whole time, the person arrested for the crime is at prom or finger blasting Darlene.
Yes.
In Chicago.
Yeah, on a fucking Ferris wheel in Chicago. Just finger, vagina, boom. So when they walked in the basement, the
maybe more than one finger.
Yeah.
Jesus.
The paramedic described the scene as the walls were covered in blood, the floors were covered in blood, the ceiling had blood sprayed all over it.
Mm-hmm.
They found the bodies of Don, Janelle, and Jolene next to a couch in the basement. Jolene's body was found still holding her mother's dead body, even in death. All shots were execution style with a shotgun. Don shot in the temple, Jolene shot in the forehead, Janelle shot in the forehead, and Jolene shot underneath her right eye.
All with the pastor's own guns?
Yes. Well, so it's
Supposedly
the shotgun on the wall was missing. They had no shell casings in the vicinity. They had no extra bullets laying around the house. There was nothing to be found.
But
no extra bullets, no shell casings or anything.
They did have 2 different kinds of slugs pulled from the bodies that indicated that there was more than one shooter. In the initial police report, though. That's very important to remember. The initial police report said that there was more than one shooter.
Yes.
So I'm just going to go right out and say that. If there's still brain matter dripping off the ceiling when Jeff is fucking in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way he got himself cleaned up that fast.
Unless he's Nightcrawler from the fucking X-Men.
There's a lot of theories too that they came back to. One of the I don't remember. I don't want to go fucking find it in my notes because it's probably lost in there. But the new defendant who decided to reopen the case and went back and looked at pictures and what was in the descriptions. The investigators talked about things like the blue jeans and the bathtub being used to wash when the bathtub was completely dry, and talking about the pants and how there wasn't any blood on them, even though they said there wasn't any trace of blood on him, even though the investigators were saying how there was blood over Jeff or over the clothes or something like that. Like, even after they found evidence saying that they were wrong in what they said at the investigation, they still stuck to their story to say, well, no, I'm not redacting what I said. I'm not.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I was wrong. It's fucked up.
So yeah, we painted the crime scene, Dylan. Go fucking bananas.
Okay. So, yeah, I am going to go fast, and I am not going to be telling every single bit of this next part of the story. It is a lot, but I'm gonna try and do this very quick before Michael passes out. I'm just kidding.
All right, let me smell you, bud.
But so this story, what I thought when I originally was looking up what happened, before the events, and what had happened is someone had seen a black truck in front of the house that they saw Bob talking to. And the truck, which they didn't get a license plate, but they did look up a name and, later investigations of, a black truck. Sorry, I got to get this on my notes. So the truck outside of the house was in the name of a man named Phil Hawley. The Hawleys were the friends of the family.
So-called friends.
So they were friends. They both went to the same church in Florida, had the same pastor. And so that definitely was like, okay, a black truck. Well, Phil Hawley owned a black truck. So now kind of skipping ahead, Fran Watson, she is the investigator, or she's not the investigator, she's the lawyer that is deciding to take this case. When she questioned the lead investigator about the fact about the bloody trails from the shooter walked between upstairs hallways in the basement, that there were no blood trails of, different areas led to one another. So them saying that he was covered in blood was obviously false. There was talk about where Bob was shot was from someone taller than Bob. Just about the shooter, that there's no possible way the shooter didn't end up being covered in blood, and they still didn't want to redact their statement. Pastor Michael Ross recently revealed Bob Pelly was tormented by something he had uncovered at Landmark Bank in 1986, criminal financial fraud. Bob approached Pastor Michael Ross in confidence, told him discovered improper handling of funds, and wasn't sure of what he should do. So they discussed the matter, and once they exchanged, talkings and stuff like that, that's why he told the pastor he needs to move to Indiana to get away from all that. So the pastor doesn't suspect anything, just thought he was scared, wanted to get as far away from possible. He made it clear he was concerned about who was involved with the fraud at the bank, and it was a lot of money and, being misused and everything like that. The pastor says Bob admits that he wasn't just scared of his life, but he was scared for his children's life. Says Bob's was he was between a rock and a hard place because people that Bob suspected of the fraud were his close friends, the Hawleys, shit like that. Mm-hmm. So people who were, he's throwing names out there of people who were using this bank, and I might get into that later. Hawley and another name we'll bring up were using that bank and running their numbers past him. So he claims, about Bob not being the ordained minister or anything like that. He doesn't know how that was made possible, how he became the minister. In the 2.5 years Lakeville murders occurred, Jack Hugh or whatever it was. What is it? I can't remember. A J name in the Pelle family. Remembers where Bob would suddenly become really paranoid. Said Bob had told her about 3 separate occasions of how he thought someone had broken inside of the church. Not only that, she says Bob was not an emotional guy. She found him once weeping and immediately struck her odd because it was so unlike his character, and this is closer to the murder.
Well, one thing, too, about the murders is that there was no forced entry into the house.
Yeah, blinds were closed, no forced entry.
But it seems to be there's a lot of people in that fucking congregation that knew that there was a key to the house in the church.
Yep.
Yes.
And they broke into the church to get the key to get into the house.
Is possible.
Well, I mean, that's what happened that morning, is they weren't let in the church. They were...
Right. Okay, so... But then you also got to think, the Hawley is there. The truck that might be in the name of Phil Hawley is at the house, seen before prom night, and that's one of their close family friends that they've been friends with for a long time. Of course, he is going to have a way into the house if it was him.
Well, right, and if David can do it,
right,
who else can get into the church?
So Jackie would say Bob, on occasion, would occasionally tell her that if anything bad happened, where she was supposed to go. She didn't realize how troubling the conversations were as a kid, but looking back, she realizes they were warning signs. So Fran Watson, the one who picked up the case, who is trying to now get Jeff out of prison and everything like that, believes Landmark Bank is vitally important. understanding, Bob uncovered really big information that never came to the light of day. 2 men who worked at the branch pleaded guilty to 4 different schemes, including creating fake loans worth millions of dollars, cashier's checks, stuff like that. And he says, you're probably wondering why I'm telling you all this. Well, the core processing center where all the fraud was funneled through would have passed in the front of eyes of Bob. There's no way of knowing if Bob knew the depth and magnitude of all the financial fraud, but it's clear based on what he told Pastor Ross that Bob knew at least some of it. So the company was going downhill, shit like that. Fran thinks that Bob moved the family to Indiana or sent away because he wanted to save himself. Thinks that Bob was running from his past and believed out of sight, out of mind. She is certain of this reasoning because of one person, a woman named Tony Beeler, who blew the case wide open. So Tony Beeler was someone who was a church person who was being sent around by these churches to take pictures, for church directories and stuff like that. And Bob Pelly pulls her aside and says he told her that he didn't want the church directories made because he had a life before the ministry. He told her about the situation because so many years had passed since she had spoken with Bob. Her recollection was a little fuzzy. She just remembers the previous life and the finance. It wasn't in Indiana. He told Tony that he had people looking for him and that, knew if they found him, they'd wipe out his entire family. So she remembers asking him if he ever killed for people for a living. He says no. They just moved their money because of he was hiding out and trying to get away from them. He stood in front of her, looking at her through the glasses with his hand on the Bible. Bob told her that he was telling her the most sincere thing he's ever said to someone. So she was curious, why is Bob unloading all this information onto me? Thinking that if he wanted out of the church directory, then so be it. But she turned around to ask her advisors, and they decided that they needed to do it anyways, and they weren't going to take that request. So he ended up having to take pictures for the directory, which showed kind of where he was at. And it's possible that could be really crucial to them finding out where he was. So she came forward with the story 2003. After the arrest made headlines, and she didn't want to keep this knowledge, by herself. So she wanted to let other people know and try and get this information out there. So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go through this fast. She basically was just there and, got all the inside information. So this is where the story kind of really isn't almost about this family getting murdered. It's about a different situation going on. So the Dawson family and Phil Hawley met at church. They became business partners. They were the Dawson family. Eric Dawson. He really wanted to start doing all this money shit, making money, making these places pop up. Phil Hawley, his friend, was the other guy. Was the guy who wanted to invest into his company and try and make some money. So Eric Dawson dies. Eric Dawson goes missing. Actually, I should say he goes missing. And later they find out after going through Hawley's home.
The whole time he was Robert Pelly.
The whole time. So Phil Hawley, Eric Dawson goes missing. Phil Hawley, being really good friends with him and friends with Bob, Hawley forged a $7 million worth deal of land from Eric 3 days before he went missing. The guy who decided to go back and investigate it all went and did a search warrant on his house and his business at Hawley. Found all the documents showing shit that they were owning the property. Eric's body was eventually found in a swamp with a cement brick on it. And what I have is cement that's like Hawley's business, because they were a construction company and they had, all these, all these contracts for construction. They were doing the construction side of Eric Dawson's business. So that's kind of where I was like, okay, the cement, they didn't have enough technology to match the cement from the block that was on the body, but they're, okay, well, it's probably somewhat similar to Dolly's business, but they don't have really enough proof. Eric's car was at the airport, and so the seat was moved up. It didn't look like he was driving it, but Phil's family was the ones that started the rumor that he had gone away to avoid his debt.
You said the Hollies were behind that.
The Hollies were the ones that were trying to tell us.
And they also visited.
And they visited him and were seen. His truck was being seen on the day of a black truck. You don't know exactly, but when they looked up later an owner of a black truck at the time, his name had a black truck in his list. So another fun thing, they talk about owning a 22, that he had loaned Holly, that Bob, the Reverend, had loaned Holly. And eventually had it back, but and 22s are common. Eric was killed with a 22, but I also thought that was coincidence that he loaned this Holly guy a pistol, and it could have possibly have been the same one. We don't really know for sure. Yeah, good. I'm going through this quick. I was like, dude, I can't. I could go fucking way too long on this, but okay.
So Holly is assumed responsible for killing this other man, Eric Dawson. He was supposedly seen outside of the house on prom night of the Pelle family.
Yep. Okay, and so, Fort Myers News Press, Michael Braun, Tom Continos, I think he's the FBI agent or one of the agents that wanted to reopen the case, and Jason Dawson, the son of Eric Dawson, 30 years later, started to look it up again. And through this time, Phil Holly and his 3 sons were getting charged with embezzlement because they brought in the guy to do the signature. The signatures were an exact match, which the guy was like, this is impossible. They must have printed it onto the paper. Right. So things are looking real, obviously, way fishy. His sons are, him and his sons obviously very much had something to do with it, and they were trying to prosecute him for that. But because they couldn't, they decided to go after him for the case of, fraud and trying to take over their land. So they go to the swamp where the body was found 30 years later to start looking again. Michael Braun, the news press, Tom Kintinos and Jason Dawson, they go to the spot, and the truck pulls up asking what's going on, and they say, we are looking for a clearing about a cold case 30 years ago. And he goes, well, just so I let you guys know, my name is David Holly, and I live here. And they go, well, how long have you lived here? And he says, I've lived here about 20, 30 years. And so, it's very bold. They say it's very bold that he decided to live on the land that, where the body was found. So that's very fucking suspicious. Another thing, Eric had a business mind when he wanted to build a place, I don't know if it was a hotel company or what, or houses or anything, but he wanted to call it Family Land. In 2020, Family Land was built by the Hollies.
Really?
Yeah. So, Pelly, going back full circle, Pelly worked for Hollies in the 90s, and that, they became friends, remained good friends. So Delia was a podcaster, and he had Tom, this investigator, on. And, when he was told that the 4 members were shot and killed in the home in Indiana, Tom began his homicide investigation into Eric's death in Florida. Once they were charged, they were looking at charges that the Hollies had on their card, and they had $420 at a gas station, another for $570, and the third was for $2,500 at a store. For $2,500 at a store through Indiana.
Weird.
According to Pelle Family phone record with the billing cycle between the dates of April 20th, early May 1989, which includes the time frame of the murders, someone used the Pellies phone line and had placed calls to Phil Holly's home during that time. But the calls weren't placed when the Pellies were alive. This was after their death. According to the phone bill on May 2nd, 1989, 2 days after the murders, 2 calls were made from the Pellies line to the Hollies' home. But the parsonage that, it had the same number as the church, so they don't know if the number was either from his house or the church. And like you said, the guy from the church who went and got the keys, it very well could have been a call made from the church instead of his home. They could have came from either one of those 2 houses.
Oh, you mean David was being suspect? Wow. Couldn't fucking imagine that.
And it's weird they don't really talk about him much. They don't really bring him up too much in this, but they say
I'll talk about David. That guy's a piece of shit.
But
he knew there were 3 dead bodies in the basement before the paramedics.
Phone calls were made on the same day, one at 12:30 p.m., which lasted for 3 minutes, another at 3:40 p.m., lasted for 4 minutes. So, May 2nd, 1989, community was getting ready for the funeral for the Pellies, which took place the following day. A logical explanation, they say, that Jeff was on the property and figured to call Phil Hawley, because they were family friends, inform them of the murders. Jackie and Fran, his lawyer, have asked Jeff if he remembers making phone calls to the Hollies on the 2nd, and Holly says that he doesn't remember giving Phil the news. Jeff thinks Phil found out about the murders the way everyone else did. Jeff has said, though, that it's likely that, he did phone Phil. He was younger. He probably just didn't remember it right. So either Jeff made the phone call on May 2nd, 1989, and just doesn't remember making it, or Jeff didn't, and it was someone else. If Jeff didn't make the phone calls, then who was the guy that did? Fran is still trying to jog Jeff's memory to this day, trying to get the reason, trying to figure it out, because that's very crucial. And she totally believes that the Hawley family is connected to these murders. She doesn't think it's the coincidence that the police raided Phil's home in the first week of April. In 1989, they raided their home in the first week of April, and then suddenly Bob, Don, Janelle, and Jolene were murdered in the last week of April. Fran mentions that the degrees of separation do not exist and that everything is connected together. Pelly is tight with Philip Hawley. Philip Hawley is tight with Eric Dawson. It's all through the bank Bob Pelly was working at. Their old pastor was questioned and thinks Phil was capable of murder. They went back and talked to him about this. So another little bit that makes Hawley look really suspicious. It doesn't sound as connected, but again, around 4 p.m. on Saturday, 1976, a car began to sink at the bottom of the St. Carlos Bay near Sanibel Island, Florida. Red Mercury convertible was partially submerged in about 5 feet of water. They towed it out. They checked the registration. It came back someone by the name of Harry William Stewart, who was from Fort Myers. Police could tell the car didn't just roll off the thruway. It had been launched almost 50 feet into the bay. Someone had to have been behind the wheel when the car went into the water. Car was never reported stolen, so to police, whoever was driving the car was the one who owned it. Police started a massive search to find the driver of the Red Mercury. But after days of diving and scourging the coastline, they were never able to find a dead body. Police were left trying to figure out who Harry's family and friends were to hopefully gather more information to help this investigation. The sunken car became a headline news story right away. According to a report in the news press, Harry's landlord called police that day after the car was found. The landlord's name? Phil Hawley. Insurance claim investigators visited Sanibel in 1977 to try and prove Harry William Stewart was dead. Although presumed dead, it was now up to investigators to prove that. Claim investigators had been receiving calls from the beneficiary of 3 life insurance policies of Harry that equaled $86,000. The beneficiary, Phil Hawley.
Jesus.
His landlord.
His landlord.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, why would you put your landlord as your beneficiary?
Yeah,
Sounds like a fake identity.
So I kind of
sounds like identity fraud.
Yes.
Shit gets weird. So police confirmed reports that Phil was attempting to collect the insurance money of Harry's death.
investigators wondered why a landlord would be the beneficiary of their life insurance. What they found was an FBI investigation months in the making, and a missing persons whose true identity was, very confusing.
Non-existent.
Yeah.
To get the answers, life insurance investigators looked closely at the life insurance policies that were made out to the man. 2 of the policies had been taken out via mail with no ability to trace, but the third was made out by an agent in Cape Coral, Florida. The agent was a close colleague and business associate of none other than Phil Hawley. Phil Hawley, this is something to remember that she says, Phil Hawley spoke out at Jeff's sentencing in 2006, claimed that he had known Bob Pelly since Jeff was 5 years old. This would have meant that Bob and Phil met sometime in 1976 because Jeff was born in 1971. In May 1976, Phil created a company called American Bureau of Citizenship. This is Phil's new, business at the time, which just so happened to aid in passport and visa application services. The business was 1 month old when the man claiming to be Harry William Stewart applied for a passport in Miami. The signature of the passport closely matches Bob Pelly's signature. Bob's lowercase l is similar to that of the passport in question. So it's just deep. I could have gone into some more shit, but this Hawley guy is obviously been fucking. He definitely killed Eric Dawson, and after his shit got raided a month later, he goes and kills fucking
The Pellies.
has Pellies killed because they were all in the same shit. They all worked together. They were he tries to say he was just needed to get out because people were after him. Not necessarily after him, but the shit that he saw while he was working at that bank, he didn't just see it, like he was a part of that. This shit goes full circle. This all happened.
He's like, I want out, and Phil was like, no, you can't.
And the fact that they can't prosecute Hawley for any of this is why Jeff is still in prison. I don't think he's out. I think they're still fighting. They're still fighting this case.
Yeah, there literally an article came out last week about him still fighting the case.
And it's absolutely mind-blowing. He is actually married to Phil Hawley's niece. And Phil Hawley's niece also suspects that Phil Hawley was behind this shit.
Whatever happened to Jesse?
Well, Jessica, his oldest, or his full sister, no, Jackie.
No.
Jessica, Jesse
is
his sister that was at the sleepover, yeah. And so 3 years after the murder, Jeff reaches out to Jessica and says, hey, you should come to Florida. And he moves back to Florida. Jeff does. And that's where he meets Phil's daughter, gets married, hitched. He says, hey, you're still family. Come hang out. Upon visiting Jeff in Florida, Jessica returns and tells investigators she genuinely believes that Robert killed himself and his family.
Really?
Because of the punishments that Robert would give the children.
Oh.
Say that again, I missed it.
Jessica, after visiting Jeff in Florida 3 years after the murder, comes back and tells investigators that she believes that Robert killed himself and his family.
I mean, if you're a big enough dick, hothead or whatever, where you gotta, you can't go, I mean, dude did go burglarize someplace. I can't blame him, man.
I mean, I feel like it's really hard to shoot yourself in the chest and the head with a shotgun.
Yeah. Especially when you're like 5'3", like Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I 100% believe it's the Hollies for sure. He was literally in town.
He
was
me.
in town.
So, the investigators...
Maybe. We don't have actual proof, but...
The investigators brought a case against Jeff to the district attorney, and the district attorney for 13 years repeatedly told them, I'm not going to indict this young man based on hearsay and circumstantial evidence. And then in 2003, a new district attorney shows up, and they do that. They do just that.
Yeah.
They stop. He was coming back from Australia, a business trip in Australia, Jeff was, and they stop him in the returning airport in Florida and arrest him, send him back to Indiana, where he, to this day, sits in a jail cell.
Wild.
One thing that I also think is kind of crazy about it, when you look at the charges that were given to the Hollies for what they did, they were running through judges and couldn't find one that was close to the Hollies that, because they were well known, they were religious. That wasn't close. And so they went through all of them. They eventually brought in a judge from retirement to deal with their case, who ended up being kind of somewhat friends, knowing the Hollies, and they ended up instead of getting 2 to 5 years for one of their charges and up to 30 years in prison for their other charges of embezzlement, they ended up getting like 120 days in jail. And I think that, compared to Jeff's sentencing, is fucking mind-blowing.
Yeah, he got 160 years.
Yeah.
160 years for not killing his family.
Rules for thee, not for me.
It's fucking insane, though. The time of death, he was either 40 miles away or close to 400 miles away at the time of death. It's fucking insane.
And like
I said, unless he's Nightcrawler from the X-Men, we've all seen what that guy can do. But,
all right, but let's take the side of, what if he did kill his own family?
And you know what? There is talk about the people who did look at the crime scene and look at the bodies and tried to make an accurate adjustment of when they died, but they're trying to talk about the murders being done somewhere between 5 or something like that, when he was apparently at the house with his family alone, but he had to leave to go get his girlfriend. I didn't get to read this part. There's so much information.
He was at a gas station on a payphone at 5:45.
I still have so much of the article. I'm gonna go back home and finish it because it's just so fucking crazy. Mostly about the Eric Dawson and Phil Hawley, but that story was nuts. I didn't get through all of it, but it's just fucking crazy. But they say that the daughter still recollects how her dad, Bob Pelly, only eats popcorn at night. He only ever ate popcorn at night in the evening, like later in the night. And they found, I think it was that they found popcorn there, and that was one of the big things
and the neighbors said that there were people in the house at like 2 a.m.
And
so if Jeff killed his family at fucking 5:30 in the afternoon, and there's people in the house at 2:30 in the morning, why the fuck are the police not called at that point?
They said there's no way, because that her dad, and it sounds really small evidence, but said there's no way, because my dad he only eats popcorn later in the night. He would never ever make it around 5 o'clock. That's not him. And there was popcorn made, and it's such a small little thing, but saying that these murders had to have happened later than 8 p.m. And by that time, Jeff was gone.
Yeah, he was in a different county.
All of his friends say he was very calm and collect. Every witness of his friends said he was totally fine. He had no worries at all. The only reason, I think, like you said, how we talked to his girlfriend and said that maybe he thought something bad was happening. Bob was very, scared. He was very paranoid.
Well, yeah, if you get visited by the Hollies.
Yes, and if Holly was there before 5 o'clock, of course your fucking dad is going to be fucking going off the wall and freaking out. Of course I'd be worried. Maybe that's why his dad let him go.
Yeah,
maybe that's why his dad decided to be like, maybe Holly came before 5. It didn't really say what time truck came.
And then
everybody was over there already.
2 of his other daughters were also not there.
Exactly.
Bro.
And the other 2 he probably just didn't like very much, and so he was like, you can stay home.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Stay home and meet your maker. I don't know. Jolene and Janelle.
Yeah, the story is just fucking crazy. It's a love triangle between these 3 men, and then for somehow all of the focus goes off fucking track, off one of the corners of the triangle onto some kid, and his life is very fucked up when he was nowhere even near what the fuck is going on.
Oh, but it was a perfect time because he was going through some shitty things in his life, stealing and shit, kid stuff.
Right.
And then so now he looks like a piece of shit. So these guys get murdered, and now, who's the
And the
shittiest person
investigators
around?
won't redact their shit, and that could
Well,
very
and
well
one-
change the whole investigation to let Jeff get out of jail. And it's like they don't want him to. I think when it talks about them talking to when they had interviews with them, and it talks about them saying, "Oh, his eyes were black like a demon." Like they aren't going to change their story because they fully believe, they're religious about the idea that he killed his family.
Well, and they, like, one of their main points is they say it was a personal assault where all the victims were killed execution style. That's not something a random attack would do, not something a robber would do. Like, yeah, it is a personal assault when you're executing someone that knows your dirty, dirty secrets.
Yeah. That's
like fucking Robert Pelly had enemies out he literally fled halfway across the country because he had enemies.
Yeah, he was involved with Holly's and Dawson's not schemes, but
I would call them schemes.
And Holly honestly was actually doing pretty good for himself. It was Eric Dawson that was a very big church guy, but just bit off more than he could chew. And so really that's where he had all this land and money, but was getting so behind on his other investments that it was a good time for Holly to strike. And also with Bob, like you said, it could have been cartel. It could have been someone who knows what exactly they were involved with down in Florida. But he was the guy at the bank where they were doing all of these transactions. And you don't just get to say, I saw some weird stuff, but I didn't want to say anything, so I left town. That doesn't exist.
No, that guy's not real. That's a Spider-Man character.
Yeah, if it's going in front of your eyes on the computer screen, you're making money off of it somehow, Like, how much money like you talked about, how him leaving and taking a pay cut of that much money, it was because he probably had a bunch of money probably already saved up because he was dealing in shady, he was doing shady business.
On the behest of the Lutheran Church.
I really can't believe how deep this shit goes, and the fact that we still have Jeff and fucking locked up. It's the most interesting fucking thing. I did not expect to realize all of this shit. It is fucking mind blowing.
Dude, he went from finger blasting Darla on prom night to getting butt fucked by Tank on every night.
Free my boy Jeff.
Dude, everyone, and
he's getting butt fucked by a dude with a Nazi tattoo right now. Imagine that.
Also, actually, I thought about this.
Does he have a husband? Is that what you're looking at?
Are they still married? What are you interested about?
I'm trying to. Okay, so TrueNightmares.com. I just wanted to give him a shout out for that article because I read a few different articles, but that's where I got all that information, and that was bad fucking ass, bro. Everyone else's articles were dog shit. That one was fucking fire. So.
Wait, you mean CNN wasn't taking on the fucking Christian church?
Yeah, it's actually crazy how they decided how everyone looks at the story and they decide to go and look at. And same with the podcast. I can't remember what the podcast name was that covered it and did a lot of, digging, but Counterclock Podcast. Counterclock Podcast, kudos to them too. But it's just crazy how a lot of people get information about this kid killing their family, and they're so stuck on the idea of, how he did kill them, how he didn't kill them. And no one brings up fucking the Dawson fucking Holly story.
Honestly, if you look into this story and you look at the real timeline of the story and still think Jeff killed his family, I'm sorry. But you and I are on a different fucking wavelength to where, do you know how, dude, I would have to at least... I was going to say rub one out after doing all that, but then I was like, that's really fucking weird. But like, to murder your whole family, get ready for prom. I'd have to
sit in a hot shower, bro.
The timeline is like 5 to 15 minutes of him doing that, ending up at the gas station where he called his girlfriend saying he was on the way, and then picking her up before 6 o'clock. This gives him 5 to 15 minutes of doing all of that. And I had like a bullet point of things that he did. Killed his father without getting blood splatter on his clothes.
When blood was everywhere.
Yeah. Literally painted the walls and floorboards.
Couches, ceilings,
Took
kitchen table.
his stepmother and 2 stepsisters in the basement. Executed the sisters in front of her and then killing her last. Changing his clothes. Reinstalling the spark plugs into his car. Picking up his tuxedo, because he hadn't picked up his tuxedo yet, too, was another part of the story where it's like, really doesn't make sense with
like
the timeline.
this guy was late. He didn't have time to kill. He was like, yo, I really want to kill my family, but I am late, god damn it.
He found out that day he was able to go to prom. So, meet his date at her house, take photos with her and her parents, and all of this was done in 30 to 45 minutes. And the window of them being killed, if he had done it, is 5 to 15 minutes, like I was saying. Like, it does not make sense. And there were some people were saying that there were reports that the people left his house at 4:45. Okay, then he has 20 minutes to do it. What's the fucking difference?
And his buddy was like, yeah, we were hanging out in his
until
garage.
like 5:20.
Right, until like the time of like the supposed murder, and the only reason is that what they're trying to say, well, his friend eventually left, and it was like, yeah, after he realized he forgot his fucking corset or whatever, it's corsage. Corsage.
There you go.
And
his wrist flower.
It sounds like a French word. Is that a French? It sounds fucking French as hell, baby.
French ass restaurant. Hurry up with my damn corsage.
But yeah, it's crazy to think that there's so many things that like back him up. Like, and he's still not out. Like, yeah, it'd be one thing for him to be locked up for a long time because, you know, they're fucking actually stupid. That, you know, they're the dumbest people, investigators back then. We talk about it all the time, how fucking bad they are at their jobs. But the fact that he's still locked up is one of the most crazy. After all this information about all, like, they literally were so close to putting Holly on fucking trial for murder, and they just because they didn't have enough evidence, even though I don't know how, because they fucking had
they
so
have
much
no
evidence.
evidence that Jeff did any of this.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's literally no other than someone be like, yeah, I think he was wearing a different shirt that day. It's like, what the that's why he's in jail.
That's why I won't.
If you look it up, it's like every single article is like, oh, he did it because he wanted his prom night to be perfect. It's like, bro, that doesn't even make that much sense.
Right, read into it a little bit. Like I said, I didn't expect to get this deep. The only fucking reason I went in as deep as I did, because in one of the very bland articles about it, talked about the black truck being in the name of Holly, and I said, who the fuck is Phil Holly? So I looked it up, and god damn, bro. Holy fuck. That's a rabbit hole and a half, bro. And it goes deeper. I still have so much to read about it. I'm going to go back and finish it, but it makes no sense. The system is fucked. I will never, ever be around anything criminal because I will get charged and sent to prison for 20 years because Michael stole fucking Twix from a grocery store.
I'd rather be carried by 6 than judged by 12.
Yeah. True. I'd rather be 6 feet under than getting fucked by Big
Tank.
John and getting fucked by Tank in the showers. I don't know though. Tank's pretty cool and he's pretty hot, so and he's gentle. That's the thing.
His swastika was really poorly illustrated. You can pretend it's something else while he's butt fucking you.
Damn, it's a window.
He says, it's Dylan, it's a symbol of power. And I go, oh, well, now that you say that, sure, take me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I got to get through it. That was it's a whole fucking ordeal. I absolutely am so surprised by the whole thing, and I can't believe he's still locked up.
Now I'm like, I need to find something even spicier for Monday. What the fuck?
Monday.
I was reading this, this is like an episode of some fucking crazy TV show. Like, I was so fucking hooked.
Oh, it is a TV show.
I was so hooked. It was so crazy. And if next week, if I find more juicy shit, I'm going to take the first 2 minutes of my time to just be like, bro, okay, real quick, I got to get something off my chest. But I don't know. absolutely wild. What a fucking wild story.
Yeah, so here we are, the prom night massacre.
Prom night don't
Crazy how that's the title. I the whole day I've been thinking it should be called the fucking Holly Murders, you know?
Yeah, but that's less catchy.
I know. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe if it was around Christmas time.
Yeah. Holly Jolly Christmas. I don't know.
With an icicle in your throat.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I don't have anything else really. I'm sure I could go back and say more, but I don't want to. That was too much.
No, yeah, I'm pretty kosher. We covered it all. Jeff is innocent.
His name is Jeff.
Free Jeff.
Yeah, free Jeff. So, yeah, I guess if you made it this far into the podcast, you have no reason other than to like, subscribe, give it 5 stars, you know, do them things.
10 stars.
Follow us on Twitter at DeborahKPod, Instagram at DeborahKPodcast. Hit up the Patreon page, patreon.com/DeborahKPod. Follow all of those on our website, DeborahKPodcast.com. Hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Get us to our custom URL. We'll catch you on Monday.
Fuck yeah.
And if you're not the cops, follow us home.
And only a
Yes.
cleansing of our whole society can we remove this sickness from our souls.
Those folks who were responsible have been held accountable.
Develops weapons of mass destruction. It doesn't matter